Coming up on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte, a man with vision.
I would have thought that's the way Henry would have done it to begin with.
A man with creativity.
From the front, it looks very much like a 39 Ford.
A man with a fondness for nostalgia.
In high school, this was the first car I had.
We visit the Bill Cromling collection. Plus,
So I pulled my bike in the parking lot and looked at the car. I'm like, wow, it's a Charger RT.
how a young teenager's pursuit of a car became reality and automotive history decades later. It's the restoration of the last Hemi. Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte, starts right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte. I'm Jeff Phelps in my garage. A little hint for you. If you can't find your favorite classic car collector, check his garage. Special treat for us today, a chance to visit with one of my favorite collectors in his garage. There are certain classic car collectors who just like collecting cars. And then there are other guys who have visions for cars. And I'm thrilled to be joined by one of those guys right now, longtime friend Bill Cromling. A man with a vision for cars, Bill.
Good to see you, Jeff.
It's good to be here with you today, and we appreciate you letting us come out.
My pleasure.
Your idea of cars is to create something that's in your mind. At least that's the way it's always seemed to me.
Well, that's true. Most of the things you see on a car that I have are ideas or things that I liked over the years and tried to incorporate those into the things when I put a car together.
Let's take a look.
Okay.
Bill, I love the variety of the cars in your collection. For instance,
This 1932 Ford, it's actually, you've had it about 10 years. This is what I call a real hot rod, based on all the ideas that you see, or the aspects of the car. There's a lot of thought put into it, but most of this stuff you would have seen on cars in the 50s or the 60s.
what's your favorite aspect of this car, Bill?
The Duval windshield. And the cowl of the 32 has been Auburned, or it's more like a 36 Ford or an Auburn Roadster.
Mm-hmm.
So this view of the car to me just blends really well together. But then it has, the outside exhaust pipes on it that end up running through the frame rails and then out the back and to what are called pencil tip exhaust tips on here, which are something that you'd seen on a car back in the 50s and 60s. The moon tank on the front would have been used for when they made speed runs on the salt flats or at the dry lakes, and they'd put some, alcohol or a nitro or something in there, and they were able to pressurize that. And then the Buick brake drums on the front, all those things are part of what makes a real hot rod, I guess, and the fact that it has a Ford V8 in it and a 5-speed standard shift transmission in it and a quick change rear end. So it makes noise going down the road.
It's always more fun that way.
You don't need a radio, and because there's that
It won't
music
do
to
any
your
good.
ears. Right.
Bill, I must admit, when you added a 46 Ford Woody to the collection, I thought, that doesn't fit the Bill I know. But here it is, and it's fabulous. I really love this car.
Well, thanks. The reason I have a Woody is just as a kid growing up, my dad had a friend in Elyria that had a 48 Woody, and as a young kid, I can remember riding around town in that. And I always liked Woodies, and I was partial to, of course, a Ford, and I was able to find this one out in Arizona. And this is somewhat unique to the vehicles I have because it actually has a Chevy motor in it. This has got a 307 Chevy and a column shifted Chevy 3-speed transmission. So basically it looks stock on the outside, but has late model running gear. It has a 9-inch Ford rear end with parallel leaf springs, and it's a pleasure to drive.
Is there anything you have to do to this for caring for the wood aspects of this, Bill?
Well, they lived in an environment originally. There was a lot of them on the East Coast, and of course there was many on the West Coast. And the cars that lived on the East Coast were usually used in summer homes. So the ones that came from the East Coast seemed to be nicer cars because out west they would have used them more often. But to take care of them, the wood has to be varnished occasionally. I'm actually reluctant to drive it in the rain, but
I would be too.
There's no reason that you can't. But you just park it in the garage.
And like all your cars, you drive these.
Oh yeah, this I took to the Good Guys event in Columbus a couple years ago, and carried a Coke cooler that my sister and I used to put between us on our trips to Atchison, Kansas when we were little. So no, it's fun to drive.
Bill, 1957, I think, is one of the great years for American cars. But I didn't think you'd be a guy who'd own a 57 Pontiac. And here it is. I love it. I love the color. I love everything about this car. When you got it, I thought, what a great find. But there was a reason you went after it.
Yes, there was. In high school, this was the first car I had. I can remember driving a 57 Chevy, and it was priced at $700.
Nice.
And then we drove a 57 Pontiac, and they only wanted $400 for it. So I ended up buying the Pontiac. So this is a high school vehicle. My wife and I would
Not this car, but
not this car,
one
but
like it.
one just like it. Same model, everything. So this is something that we dated in and had for the first few years of our marriage before I moved on to hot rods. So this car is a Pontiac, and it has a 347 with trips on it, and it's a hardtop, and it's a really nice car to drive, a pleasure to drive, really. It's a nice highway car.
And it's a great looking car. You know, not just the design, but everything about this is just the way it's supposed to be. It's really sharp, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting color. It looks lavender to me.
It does, me too.
But it's called sage blue. And this is actually a Super Chief, which is a upscale Chieftain, and it has these fender bullets are lit, and they have the chrome headlight rings on it. And
Those are cool.
yeah,
A very nice
so
look.
the interior was a little nicer than the one I had in high school, but basically the same car.
And how long has this one been in the collection?
Just about a year and a half. I bought it finished, except there was a lot of mechanicals that weren't done, and I had a really hard time finding the linkage for the kickdown for the transmission and for the tri-power carburetor. So that took me almost 9 months to get the right pieces and making sure they worked. And just the brakes and stuff like that, but the car was basically finished, which made it it's a lot cheaper to buy one done than it is to do one. So.
Yeah, but when it comes to the stuff under the hood, you can
Yeah,
take care of all that yourself.
Yeah, I can do all the mechanicals. I'm not a painter.
Coming up next, a longtime friend gets a major makeover.
Said it sat in the barn for years, and there was times that we kind of forgot about it, but it was always part of the family.
Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte. We'll be right back.
Handling classic and high-performance vehicles requires an industry-leading team of experts. Welcome to RK Motors Charlotte. Industry-leading means meticulous attention to detail when servicing every vehicle. It means a consignment service so fine-tuned that a successful sale at maximum value is all but guaranteed. And a rigorous inspection on every vehicle before its tires even touch our sales floor. It's all this and more that make RK Motors Charlotte the industry leader. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
Now back to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Bill, of all the cars you have, this one is the one with serious history, serious ideas, serious creativity. This is the car that you had in your mind for many, many years.
Yes, it is.
What do you have here?
Well, this I bought this car originally in 1972 in Dayton, Ohio, and it was black and had a 324 Olds in it.
And it's a 1940 Ford.
It's a 40 Ford. It may not look like that from the front, but it is a 1940 Ford. But it did have a 324 Olds in it and a Cad LaSalle 3-speed transmission and an early Ford rear end in it originally. And it was, again, all black with black interior.
When did this change? How long did you have it in its original state, black?
Well, it stayed black up until about 3 years ago. This sat in the barn for a number of years until we decided that it was time to finish it. And
What was the concept? What were you thinking you wanted to do?
I like traditional cars, and this may not look too traditional to some people because of the flames, but the body modifications on it and the interior are truly traditional items on the car. So we wanted kind of the 60s look with it.
The 60s hot rod look?
Yes, and the flames may be of a more modern type, but it was the painter's choice on the style of the flames, but I was real happy with the colors on it. So, but the interior, the chrome garnish moldings, just the layout of the car, how it sits, the rubber running boards, all these things are, and there's many more body mods to it that are real subtle that we'll point out.
Let's take the tour.
Earlier we mentioned that this is a Ford Opera Coupe, but from the front it looks very much like a 39 Ford because it has 39 headlights, 39 hood, 39 grille, and of course the 39 hood would have been two pieces, so it's been welded together and peaked. The center chrome piece and the grille has been replaced with body color, so the peak of the hood runs down into the grille. The front bumpers are 40 Mercury, and they're sit closer to the body, and of course there's no bumper bolts showing, and the plating on the front is, or I should say the back, is as nice as the front of the bumper. The cowl vent, of course, has been filled. Normally in a 40 Ford, this piece here would have been just a chrome piece that divided the two front window pieces. Mm-hmm. This is now a solid body piece, which would have been, if you see a 40 Woody or a 40 convertible, they had this solid piece like this on it. So we incorporated a piece from one of those cars and incorporated it in here to give it that true two-piece windshield look. Most guys, when they do a 40 Ford, will remove the vent windows. Mm-hmm. I wanted to keep that originality there because back in the 60s they would have not removed them. Today, most of them are gone. Kept rubber running boards, but a lot of cars that are modified like this now, they usually paint them body color. And then of course, this way, there's always a young fellow that will stand on that running board at a car show not knowing, because he wants to look inside.
Sure,
so,
he does.
Yeah, that protects, the rubber is more functional.
And it protects your heart.
Yes, yes. The door corners have been rounded. It has 39 Ford trim on it. And the running boards are actually flush fit to the body. The fenders are flush fit also to the body. Normally they would have a piece of welting between the body and the fender.
Bill, how long did this project take?
It took about 2.5 years for them to finish the car. The other thing that we did is rounded the trunk corners here at the top of that to me looks like the way it should be.
Rather than squared off as
Right.
it was.
Normally it would have been squared off here.
And when you have curves like this, you don't square something off.
No, yeah, I think I would have thought that's the way Henry would have done it to begin with.
He must not have been too involved in the 40 Ford.
No. The back of the car is truly 44. There's nothing different about it than any other 40. It has the Sergeant stripe taillights. Trunk handle is in the proper location, as is the license plate. Again, we have another 40 Merc bumper back here that is mounted closer to the body.
Those are a good look too.
Yeah. They center mounted the exhaust pipes. The interior is probably one of the biggest things that date the car to the 60s. White and blue leather. The car, when it was black, had a mother of pearl dash like you see here today. So we kept that aspect of the car. And the only thing that on this car that's not Ford is the armrests are from a 49 Chevy. The people who appreciate cars appreciate the amount of work that went into this car and the thought that went into it.
It's kind of neat that a car you've had for almost 40 years it has become what it's become after years of thinking about it, after years of owning it, and after years of thinking, one day I'll get this done.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, it sat in the barn for years, and there was times that we kind of forgot about it, but it was always part of the family.
He was a 14-year-old kid on a bike ride who uncovered a treasure.
And he checked it with every assembly plant that built anything with a Hemi in it and said, you have the last Hemi car ever made.
The Last Hemi is next on Cruisin', presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Sally, Tina, Betsy, you've developed quite a bond with your classic car. Let the consignment professionals at RK Motors Charlotte make the selling process as painless as possible. Through precision marketing and large customer base, we all but guarantee a sale at maximum value, and we don't get paid until your car sells. We've sold over 1,500 classic cars here at RK Motors Charlotte, and now we'd like to get to know Betsy, at least for a little while. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
From start to finish, the restoration of the Last Hemi. It was the late 1970s. Joe Angelucci was a 14-year-old kid with a passion for Mopars. One Mopar in particular.
I was going over a friend's house after school one day, and I was just, looking around as I was riding, and I saw the tail end sticking out of a garage door in an apartment building. And I recognized the tail lights as being RT tail lights, and you could kind of see the emblem, but it was pretty far away. So I pulled my bike in the parking lot and looked at the car. I'm like, wow, it's a Charger RT. And the emblems were removed from the car while it was sitting there. I didn't know it was a Hemi car at the time. So I wrote down the serial number. I went over to my dad's house the next weekend and looked up in his Challenger service manual the number for, an R code in the serial number, and I'm like, wow, it's a Hemi car. And my dad said, oh, that's pretty rare. He goes, I wonder if it still has the Hemi, and a lot of those engines were pulled out, and swapped out for 318s back in the gas crunch days. And so the next time I went back, I rode my bike up there and I crawled underneath the bumper and popped the internal hood release from outside the car, and lo and behold, there was still Hemi under there, and we took all kinds of pictures of it and everything, put it all back the way it was, and then I started going door to door to all the apartments inside there to find out who owned that garage number 48, and it turned out it was a little old lady that had the garage. And I asked her if that was her 71 Dodge out in the garage, and she laughed and said, oh no, I'm renting the garage to a friend of mine. So I rode my bike over to that guy's house, and he didn't want to sell it, plus I was 14, he probably didn't take me too serious. We stayed in touch about once a year, every year for many, many years. I brought a mint 71 Charger RT over to his house and offered to trade him that 440 car for the Hemi car, and he didn't want to do it. He was going to hang on to the Hemi car, and over the years, the visits got to be, instead of every year, I was 2 years, and then maybe towards the end 3 years. But the way I found the car was for sale was my mom had stopped at a garage sale of all things.
Joe went to that garage sale, where he met a guy who knew the guy that Joe had been bugging since he was that 14-year-old kid dreaming of owning that Hemi Charger.
And he said, well, I got to tell you something, the car's for sale right now.
A few phone calls later.
Went over there, the car was in the brand new garage, brand new as in 12 years ago now, and it didn't matter what if the engine was locked up or not, I was buying the car. I was positive I was going to buy the car.
And can I ask, how old are you now?
47.
So this is a 33-year love with this car.
With this car, yes.
33 years.
Yep.
From 14 to 47.
Yep.
And you saw it when you were 14 looking like this.
Exactly. It hasn't changed a bit. I've put 100 miles on it since I've had it. When I found the car in '78, it looked exactly like this.
So in his mid-20s, Joe Angelucci acquired his dream. But then the fairy tale became even more interesting.
13, 14 years ago, a Chrysler historian guy named Galen Govier got a hold of my serial number and told me that, it sounded very later than anything he's ever heard of, and we got on the phone together for quite some time. He got the serial number and the information off my build sheets, and he checked it with every assembly plant that built anything with a Hemi in it and said, you have the last Hemi car ever made. And we've since then done lots of checking. it was considerably later than everything else. I love the car. I bought the car because I loved it. You know, finding that out was just a big plus.
For more on the restoration of the last Hemi, visit our website at thelasthemi.com.
When it comes to restoring or servicing your classic or high-performance car, expertise is the name of the game. And that's precisely what you'll find at RK Motors. You'll find our expertise in the attention to detail that can only be acquired through years of working on world-class builds. You'll also find our expertise in the RKM Performance Center, where we've assembled a team of highly qualified ASE-certified mechanics. When expertise is the name of the game, trust the experts at RK Motors. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
Now back to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Bill, we've moved into the shop for, I think, just what's an absolutely great story. First of all, it's a 32 Ford.
Yes, it is. And it's a coupe.
Pretty astute by my observation there, huh?
Right. Yeah, this has a story much like the 40, but this one, the 40, I bought in '72. This one I bought in pieces in '68 in Elyria, Ohio. And over the next few years, we built the car completely in our garage except for paint, and drove it to the '72 Street Rod Nationals in Detroit. So, but in the late '70s, I sold the car. Oops. And it was out of my possession for a long time until my one son decided he thought he ought to try to find it. So he was able to track the car down.
Unbeknownst to you.
Unbeknownst to me. And located it up in New Hampshire. So it took him about a year, I think, to get the gentleman to sell the car to him. And when he decided to sell it, my two boys, flew up to New Hampshire, jumped in a car that they might have remembered from when they were really little, but they jumped in the car and drove it 702 miles home.
Hoping it worked.
And surprised me with it. I realized when the car came up the driveway that it was our old 32 Coupe, but I thought somebody was bringing it over to show me that they had my old car, until I noticed my boys were sitting in the car. So
you thought, wait a minute, you have my boys too?
Right. So
well, that's a wonderful surprise, and you're redoing it.
Yes. So it's going through a reincarnation, I guess. But the unique thing about it is I mentioned about the 40 Ford having a 324 Olds in it originally. That engine now is under the hood of this car. So
that's convenient. We've
kind of married the two cars together in this car. So we still have the 324 Olds, and they are original 32 Ford Coupe. So it's I'm glad I have it back. I would have never thought of trying to locate it myself, but I'm sure glad that the boys did that. It originally had chrome reversed wheels on it when I had it back in the '60s, so it'll be the same, look the same.
Well, this is absolutely fabulous.
Well, thanks.
That was a lot of fun. Always great to see Bill, and thanks to the entire Cromling family for having us out. Getting the '62 Thunderbird ready for a car show. Might see you there, but we definitely hope to see you on the next Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.